Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, the hot woman with cool solutions and the author of the #1 international best-selling book, Hot Women Rock. I can't get enough of saying that, so I'm just going to keep on with it. To celebrate the launch of the audiobook, I'm talking to the lovely co-authors who wrote those stories for the book. And today I'm talking to Beverley Glick. And Beverley has been telling stories for a living for 35 years. First as a music journalist and a pop magazine editor, and then as a national newspaper all-rounder. But more recently, she's become the Story Archaeologist. And what that means is that she helps business owners to dig into their life experiences to find the stories that help to communicate what makes them unique. And she's also a public speaking coach and a trainer and a co-host of a regular storytelling event in London that's called the Story Party, which is where I finally got to meet Beverley face to face earlier this year, and it was such a fun event. So hi Beverley, how are you doing today?
Hello Pat, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Excellent. So you started out in the civil service like I did, but you escaped a lot quicker. You found out that wasn't for you and you joined in backing vocals for a band and got into music and then into music journalism and journalism generally. And then tell us a bit more about what happened kind of midlife, late 40s that changed the course of what you were doing.
Well, in my mid-40s, I think that was a point at which I felt that journalism was no longer a career, as in, climbing a career ladder. I'd really achieved pretty much everything I'd wanted to in journalism. And considering I started out as an accidental journalist, it wasn't an intention that I'd set. But I'd still managed to do work in lots of different areas within journalism, different newspapers. I'd have different kinds of roles. I couldn't really think of anything else I'd want to do. So it was partly that I felt that I'd achieved that. But I'd also always wanted to move into the personal development field. Right through my career in journalism, I was going to workshops. I'd studied NLP. I did all sorts of workshops. I was a bit of a workshop junkie. So I got to the point where I thought, it would be really great if I could actually be in this field myself. And it was around the time when the hacking stuff started coming out in the press. And I found that a very difficult time because it really challenged everything I held dear about truth-telling in journalism. So it was a kind of confluence of those things. It was the feeling that I'd done everything I wanted to do in journalism, and I just didn't like the way journalism was going. It was partly that. It was also, when the digital media started to become much more important, and I kind of started feeling that my time had passed. I grew up in the traditional print media, and it was fantastic. And that the quality of that journalism, I think, started to suffer when the transition to digital media started. So there were all of those reasons.
Yeah, so what did you do? What action did you take when you realised you wanted to do something new?
Well, what I did was I thought I toyed with the idea of going into some kind of counselling work, but I knew that I'd have to train for quite a number of years in order to qualify. And at that point, I was in my early 50s, so I thought, I don't really want to spend years studying. So I thought, okay, I'd kind of rejected life coaching for a bit because I just thought, well, I'm not sure I want to be a life coach. But I thought, well, hang on a minute. Why don't I look for a course that's like a holistic course, something that actually will allow me to be a coach on many different levels. And there's quite a story attached to how I found this course, which I won't go into now, but it was highly serendipitous that I found this new course called Human Potential Coaching that was created by a medical doctor called Dr. Mark Atkinson. And I just went on the website, I read the prospectus, and I thought, that's for me. And I signed up on the spot.
Excellent. So you did that course, you came out the other side of it with all of those new skills.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Then what happened was I thought, okay, I'm a qualified coach now, and as many coaches do, full of enthusiasm, really excited, want to get out there. And then it's like, okay, so how do I differentiate myself? How do I get myself known? There's lots of life coaches out there. How am I going to promote myself? And I suddenly realized, well, you know, I'm running a business now and I've never done that before. I've always worked for other people. So to remedy that, I decided to join a community of entrepreneurs called Inspired Entrepreneur, which was run by Nick Williams, who is the author of a book called The Work We Were Born to Do. So that was my first step.
Yeah.
And Nick created a community which I joined. And it was one of the very first meetings that I went to where everybody was talking about where they were with their businesses, and some people hadn't started businesses yet but wanted to. And he said, okay, I understand why you want to move on from journalism, but don't you think that you're in danger of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here?
Yeah.
You know, you spent your adult life building up all of these skills in editing and being able to spot a story, knowing what makes a good story, knowing how to write a good story, how to write headlines, all of that, everything that I'd kind of taken for granted over that period of time. And he said, well, wouldn't you think that we might be interested in learning about that? Perhaps you could teach it. This hadn't occurred to me at all. So, and then various other people in the room were going, oh yeah, I'd really like to know how to do that. I'd love to know how to find great stories. So then this started to filter in around my brain, and I thought, oh, okay, they've got a point. in my haste to reinvent myself, I was in danger of actually just doing away with all those hard-won skills.
Yeah, because once you found your superpower, and that is your superpower, you know, why would you not use it? And I think that's a really important lesson for any midlife entrepreneur who's thinking of moving in a different direction. Yeah. Acknowledge your superpower and find a way to use it, particularly, you know, if that's something that makes you happy. Yeah. And I get the sense that storytelling makes you happy.
It does make me happy. And I think I needed to step outside journalism to realise that. And it was only when I was in a completely different context with different people with different needs that I understood that I had a lot to offer in terms of what I'd learned. So I love the way that you've described it as a superpower, because I've done some work with teenagers, and I've gone back to my old school to speak to girls there, and that's exactly one of the things I say to them is, you know, when you decide you want to change direction in your career, just know that you can take all of the skills that you've built up before that with you. You know, whatever you've already learned, you'll be able to use it again in the next stage of your career.
Yeah, I mean, when I was working in the civil service towards the end of my career, and I'd asked my boss, who I didn't get on with, for feedback. And he said to me, well, you're obviously good with people, but so what? I was a manager, you know. So, and that was somebody treading all over my superpower.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's like saying to Superman, oh, so you can fly? That's,
so what? Yeah.
You know, if that's what you're good at, you need to use it, really. Yeah. And so now you have the storytelling parties as well as helping businesses to discover their story. What do you think people get most from the storytelling parties?
From what I've observed and what I've experienced, there's something quite magical happens when people step up to share something very personal with an audience. It's a huge rite of passage for the storyteller, especially as it often is. It's a story they've never told in public before. There's something really important about having your story witnessed by a group of people who are hugely supportive and sympathetic and empathetic to what you're talking about.
Mm.
But I think that there's something very important in that it's a group of people that you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's stepping into that wider circle beyond your close friends or family that might feel a bit risky before you do it, but when you actually get out there and you tell that story, and as so often happens, people will come up to you afterwards and say, "Oh my God, that's just really touched me, and that reminds me of when I did this," or "Thank you, you've just given me an insight into something that's going on in my life."
Yeah, it's kind of a validation of what
Huge
happened.
validation.
Yeah.
There's huge validation, and there's...
Yeah, I noticed that at the one that I came to, people were very moved by the stories, and the storyteller obviously touched by being able to tell their story and get that response to it.
Yeah, it's hugely valuable.
Yeah,
it's such a simple thing, but we just don't do it anymore. And obviously, sharing stories is something that's really important to us as human beings, but we're increasingly losing touch with that face-to-face storytelling experience, which is one of the reasons why I co-created the Story Party.
Yeah, I mean, I was so pleased to include the stories in the book, because it's that whole thing of being able to tell those stories and other people sharing them and learning from them.
Absolutely.
So this is Pat Duckworth, from the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And I'm talking today to Beverley Glick. And I really wanted to talk about your values. I'm already hearing them in what you're saying.
Yeah.
This thing about truth is important to you. So tell me more about your values, the things that motivate you in what you do.
Yes, absolutely. Truth does motivate me, and it's interesting because truth is such a hot topic, not just in the media now, but also in politics. And observing what's going on in the American elections has been kind of gripping, but also extremely worrying for me, because we seem to be arguing about what the truth is now. So in my frame of reference, when I talk about truth, I'm talking about what your own emotional truth is. Because it seems that we can argue about what the facts are, but you can't argue with what someone's emotional truth is, because that's theirs.
Yeah, that's lovely. And finding their emotional truth in what they do and how they express themselves.
Yeah, so that's really important to me, and that informs the work that I do. And another really top value for me is connection.
Okay, I'm seeing that in what you're doing.
Yeah, really, really important. And it's the human connection, really. I mean, yes, we are super connected now globally. You can connect with people more easily than ever before. And that's great. I'm not saying that's a bad thing necessarily, but I wouldn't like to think that digital connection and virtual connection is going to replace real human connection.
Yeah. So there's an exercise in the book, Hot Women Rock, about finding your values and the things that are most important to you. Have you got any advice for somebody about how they discover their values?
Well, the way that I would approach it actually is by using story. It's by listening to the stories that you're telling. And perhaps you could even look at the stories that you're telling about people that really provoke a strong reaction in you, good or bad. Why does someone really inspire you? What are their values? And what is it about someone that you really react strongly to negatively? What are their values, and why does that clash so much with what your values are?
That's an excellent point, because we get angry when our values have been contravened.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we don't realise, why some person might shrug something off, and we feel really strongly about it. And it's those values that have just been trodden on.
Absolutely.
In some ways, that's the kind of red alert. I didn't realise that's what my value was, but now I totally understand it.
I think that's one of the simpler ways of identifying what the values are, because I think sometimes when you sit down with someone and you say, okay, so what are your values? People don't always know what they are. So a reference point.
Absolutely. I remember buying the Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, years ago. And I got to that chapter that's about values, and I stalled on it for weeks trying to work out what my values were. So, yeah, it's a really important thing to do.
Yeah.
It's been really great talking to you. If there are people watching this who want to work with you or just contact you or come along to a story party, how can they contact you?
Okay, so you can go to my website, which is beverleyglick.com, and it's Beverley with an EY, so it's BEVERLEY.com. And my email address is on there if you want to contact me by email. And the Story Party website is thestoryparty.co.uk, so there will be details of the upcoming events. We have one on November the 22nd, and that's in central London, but you'll find details on that website.
And it's a really fun evening. I'd really encourage people, if you live near London and you can get into the Covent Garden area, it's a really fun evening. It's so enjoyable. You'll hear other people's stories. You get a chance to mingle. It's great. So thank you for being with me today, Beverley. And just a quick reminder, the audiobook of Hot Women Rock is out, so you can have all these stories read to you. How good is that? You don't even have to read them. You can have them read to you. Thanks a lot, and watch out for more of these interviews on Hot Women Rock. Thank you.